pase, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, golazo, golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Tuesday, December 19th, 2017. 6 days until Santa comes. That's getting pretty close. I need to go do some shopping. Duane, good morning.
Morning. I have to do some shopping too, but it's not the 24th yet, so we're fine.
yeah, me too. You know who else has been doing some shopping for a little while now? Since last summer, actually. That's Besiktas, Duane. They've been trying to get this one item, the one gift they wanted to give their supporters. They've been working on for about 10 months. And maybe a deal is in place right now.
Hello, I'm coming to Besiktas. What's the commercial, the YouTube videos they had there? I'm coming to Besiktas. Anyway, Kyle Larin, looks like there's a deal in place according to some Turkish reports out there. Now, it's not confirmed by the club or by Larin's camp yet, but that makes some sense because they're not going to make an official announcement until January, right?
Yes, especially because if it's in January, you get more money. But here is the article from White TV, which is a Turkish news outlet. Here is the Google translated in English version, which gives you...
Why?
Exactly. But it's not too bad, right? It's a lot better than it was before. In Besiktas, a transfer charge was introduced for the circuit. Whatever. The Black and White administration allegedly reached a principal agreement for the transfer of Orlando City forward Larin. Besiktas President Fikret Orman said that he went to America for the Besiktas ball held in New York City in the last few days and ended this transfer there. So apparently when they had their gala in New York City, Besiktas met with Orlando officials and Major League Soccer officials, which would kind of make sense if it's in New York City, and they agreed on a transfer for the Canadian international.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good, and there's some logic to this. Now, look, he had been linked there a little bit earlier. We did talk about this way back when, and I think at that point we kind of wondered out loud whether, how much that was true and how much of that was maybe someone just going, oh, a Canadian plays there, so he'll obviously go there. But now that these discussions are out there a little more openly, the fact that there's a Tiba there does in fact then make it seem like there's a logical little in there. And it also sort of speaks a little bit to Atiba maybe deciding that he might just end his career there rather than come back, which is also a bit of a story here that I take from this. Or he'll, pass the baton, so to speak.
Yeah.
Maybe
he'll pass the relay. He'll pass the relay to Kyle Larin. But that's what it looks like. You know what it reminds me of? Sometimes in movies or in sports or whatever, you have like one cult hero for the club. All right, so Atiba Hutchison is a bit of a cult hero for the supporters of Galatasaray. He's the Canadian player. Where's Canada? It's far away. We've never been there. It's like if you're in Turkey, it's exotic to have that Canadian player. And now he's getting up there in his career. He's got more behind than in front, to say it nicely. So why not have a successor? Have a Canadian successor to carry that torch that could be handed to him by Atiba Hutchison.
Fair enough. I think you had a bit of Freudian slip there and said Galatasaray. I don't think Atiba's a cult hero for them. But
Besiktas, they hate Galatasaray, but that's what happens.
Yes, exactly. I suspect he's something else with Galatasaray fans, but nonetheless, that could be something there for sure. But more on a pragmatic sense, it's going to allow Kyle Larin, if in fact this does come to pass, to have someone there that will understand what it's like to be an English speaker in Turkey, what it's like to be a black man in Turkey, what it's like to deal with the political uncertainty of Turkey, and if you can get rid of deal with all of those aspects of the move, the cultural aspects of the move, it is a good footballing move for him. It is a league that I would call a second-tier European league. Which that's not an insult because I think there's about 5 tiers of European leagues. So the fact that it's the second tier is pretty damn good.
It's a Champions League team year in, year out? just that in itself.
Of late, yes.
Yeah,
anyway,
of late.
yeah.
And probably for the next few years. But it is a Champions League opportunity for Kyle Larin, which, depending on where he goes, if it's an English team or an Italian team, he's not necessarily guaranteed as much as Besiktas is to be in the Champions League. I think his chances of being in the Champions League playing in Turkey are as high as they would be anywhere else without having to be in a top 3, top 4 club in England, right?
Well, you look at Fenerbahce and Galatasaray seem to have had this sort of, a bad analogy. They spend too much money. There's an analogy I was going to use there that I'm trying to not use anymore because it's kind of crude. But they spent way too much money and now they're sort of paying for it. Whereas I think Besiktas has sort of built kind of more stably and more correctly and seem to have evolved into the top team in Turkey over the last 3 or 4 seasons. And so you're right. As long as you stay in that number 1 spot, and since they've gone into the round of 16 this particular time, that would sort of help their coefficient moving forward to ensure that they don't fall into the Dutch trap where you lose that automatic entry into it. I've seen people. It's amazing. When I was reading the reaction to this, how ignorant, I guess is the word I'll use, people are to leagues like Turkey, where they were like, "Oh, it's too bad he couldn't have went to a better league like Holland." It's like, well, Holland's not a better league right now.
The Eredivisie is terrible. There's Ajax, and they can barely make it in the Europa League.
They lost their direct entry into the Champions League, folks. In fact, they not only have to go through the playoff, they have to start in the 3rd round of the playoff, which means they have to go through 2 processes for their champion before they're even into the group stage. So that's not think that let's get Holland out of the mix of a place that we ideal. Like, it's great if you're a player that's not necessarily at the very top of what your national team pool is to go to any league, really, but if you're top players, you want them to go to some place that at least has a direct group stage entry, like Turkey does. So this is, I think, a good move there. And look.
Sorry, Duane. I just wanted to mention, because it's been a few months, the timing in this decision for Kyle Larin to move to Europe is maybe a year later than was anticipated at the beginning. This is a financial decision taken as much by Orlando as Major League Soccer. There was a percentage of a potential transfer in the future that would go back to Orlando that would be a lot higher this January than it would have been last January. I think, if I'm not mistaken, last January would have been something like 20%, and this January it would be something like 35 or 33, if I'm not mistaken, if those numbers are correct in my memory. So you do have a big financial incentive for Orlando and Major League Soccer to get that deal done in this transfer window.
It's actually, not to correct you, but...
that's what I'm saying. That's what I meant. Correct me if I'm wrong.
it goes from... had they moved him last year, they would have kept half of the transfer fee that they would have been able to spend on allocation from themselves. Now it's 2/3. So it's a significant increase from there, yeah. It made sense from Orlando's perspective. It also made sense for Kyle Larin and his camp's perspective that he moved from Major League Soccer, because there was some talk that he might stay as a DP. I think for a lot of reasons it's good for him to get out there. We've talked a lot about sort of the turmoil around Orlando City the last year, and I don't think we need to belabor that or Kyle's legal situation anymore. Yeah. But from a pure financial situation, I know that there are provisions within Kyle's contract which benefit him and his handlers very handily, which handlers handily anyway, they very well.
That works.
So it made sense for them, and it will benefit future Canadian players too. If you want to be cynical about this, because Kyle's handlers are Sigma. That's how Sigma finances themselves. So as long as they don't want to be paid to play, selling him on is going to guarantee that their very successful model, should continue for many more years to come, and that's a good thing too for the future of Canadian soccer. So you got to like that. We should talk a little bit about what this means for Major League Soccer and for Orlando as well. Obviously, for Orlando, the answer is pretty clear. They get money out of it, and they're going to need to spend that money wisely. I don't know how much confidence anyone has that Orlando can spend money wisely at this point, but we'll see about that. And Orlando fans are free to chime in if you're listening, but certainly that's the be all and the end all there. But this is another move of a young player moving from MLS to a bigger league, and Turkey is a bigger league. that I think has been part of the evolution of MLS, the MLS 3.0 model, so to speak, because and I think it bodes well in the league too. I know that there's a lot of North American-based fans that have trouble wrapping their head around such an idea, but Major League Soccer has to exist in the world's market,
in the world's game
right now.
I was just gonna say, when's the last time we saw a player leave North America to go somewhere else before his prime, right? We rarely see it happen. We usually see it happen even when they're really, really young, mid-15s and whatever, and they move to Europe, like Lucas Cavallini or other players like this. Like Larin is one of the first instance of I don't like to use this kind of analogy, but it works, a product, an asset that's been built here. He's been produced here, and he's being exported to go learn even more and maybe come back down the road in his prime of his career with a lot more experience and some Champions League game and whatever. But it's one of the rare instances to have never mind Canadian, never mind American, a North American player being exported and bought by a bigger club. We don't see that every day.
Yeah, I mean, Josie Altidore maybe might be an example of that from a few years ago. Obviously, when he moved to Europe, he was quite young, and then he came back in his mid-20s. That's the model that we're looking at here. Now, Kyle's not young. He is 22, I want to say right now. So that's partly because he went through college. It's not partly because he went through college. It is because he went through college. But yeah, certainly a guy that was completely developed in North America, in the North American system that's going over. It's not completely unheard of, but it's rare, and it's especially rare that the player. What makes it rare is it's a player that was developed in the North American system, then went to college, and then went into MLS, was successful in MLS, and then left MLS while he was already very successful. As you said before, what we've seen are players that have gone when they're very young, and they've sort of developed over there and then have come back once they were able to contribute in Major League Soccer in their best Major League Soccer years, as I said, with Josie and with Michael Bradley, for that matter, come after they come back. There's other examples. I'm just using the two that are familiar to me mostly right now.
No, but it's true, and it's kind of what the rest of the world experiences on a day-to-day basis, where you're a big prospect from 17 to 20 or 23, 24, get by a bigger club and goes to a higher level. Like, we'll see this happen with Davies in the next few years, if not, like, he's going to train with Manchester United. We didn't really have a chance to talk about it, but in January, Vancouver has agreed to let Alphonso Davies go train. He's been invited by Manchester United to train with them for a few weeks. He's still under 18, so he can't sign a contract.
I need to inject something there. He's training with Manchester United's youth team, and that's an important distinction that I think we need to put the brakes on a little bit. He's not training with the main players, but nonetheless, he will be exposed to their scouting staff and will be seen by them, and that's the important part about this. But no, he's not going over the train with this full senior team.
No, but
I think there's some people.
It's just an example, though, of other instances right now of young players and Canadian players at least gathering some attention. Just that is a step forward.
For sure.
Because we used to be in the black hole here.
Exactly. No, and it's positive. And I've said this to anyone who wants to continue to crap on the overall system and, if the CSA, nothing's going right. Well, that's not entirely true. As someone with a long memory, things are much better now than they were 10 years ago. They still have a long way to go, which is the frustration, and we all feel it. But nonetheless, now there are players that are getting developed, just not enough of them. But those two players that are getting developed are getting, at a pretty high level. Now, look, there's the other side of this, and this is a good example, a good time to talk about something that we haven't talked about at all just yet, is that you've got to succeed once you get over there. And he doesn't have his guaranteed side of starting over there. Devin Ball is going to the club in the new year, so that's consider that. So he's got to beat some quality players, which I think will be beneficial to his career too, to get his playing time. But if that fails, or if you get injuries or bad luck, like say Daniel Henry, which is now officially out of contract and a free agent, you're going to be scrambling to get time, and you might be looking to come back to North America in the very near future. And with Daniel, I don't know what's going on there, but certainly that was news that wasn't really, that sort of slipped out of the radar. We didn't even talk about it, but when he when West Ham released him, it was to no one's shock, but But that's the other side of the story, is there's risk to doing this, but
it's true.
there's
Huge
no
risk.
reward with that risk.
There's huge risk, but it's that risk-reward factor, right? The rewards that Larin could have is, who knows? He goes to Besiktas, becomes a star, scores a lot of goals, attract attentions of bigger clubs, and goes for, I don't know, let's say a Liverpool or Atleti, and eventually, because there's tiers, and eventually maybe Madrid or Barcelona. We're dreaming here, we're fabulating here, but that's the dream, that's the goal, and the first step to living that dream is get your foot on the old continent.
You can't hit a home run if you don't swing the bat.
Yeah, I have to agree, and good luck to Larin on that bat swing. Let's take a break and come back. We'll talk about the CONCACAF Champions League, the CONCA Champions.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.
And we're back on Soccer Today. Duane, breaking news. You're not even aware I'm going to say this right now. Just received an email from Major League Soccer Communications. Major soccer announcement on Wednesday in Nashville. Who? Don Garber, John Ingram, Nashville Soccer Holdings, LLC, Bill Aslam from the Tennessee Governor, Megan Barry of the Nashville Mayor, and an MC from Taylor Twellman. He's the ESPN's. Taylor Twellman will be the MC, the Master of Ceremony. Duane, Nashville is getting a Major League Soccer franchise.
I don't think they're announcing Sacramento getting in if they're in the press conference at Nashville. No, there was some suggestion that the announcement was coming this week, and this is a very similar sort of path that Portland took a few years ago, I think, in the sense that no one saw it coming until it obviously was coming, and then it came. Portland obviously had a team, so it's a little different, but that sort of has the same feel to me, is that they were the underdog that kind of was like under everyone's radar, and then they got the stadium. But that it speaks to that very need right there. They got the funding for the stadium, and once the stadium funding was in place and the ownership was acceptable, it's about stadiums too. And away we go. We'll see where the second one comes in. We'd think Sacramento, but
I got a feeling it's going to be in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Oh my God, those poor people in Sacramento if they get bypassed again.
It's the new Rochester. But Nashville. I want to say a little hi to Jeff Ruder. Jeff Ruder was right a few months ago. We kind of knew. But Nashville is going to be that's team number 24? Because like I was said during Major League Soccer Week, MLS Cup, sorry. Well, there's a very high probability that Miami is going to be overtaken by other projects, and that's my own opinion, and I've been saying this for 3 years and over. Miami's never going to happen.
There was some speculation this week that Miami was getting closer. That is the caveat in terms of this East-West sort of divide thing. But that said, most of the quality expansion bids right now are East. Nashville's kind of it's a weird geographical location. It could swing either way. It could play in the Western Conference or the Eastern Conference. So I think that I wouldn't necessarily read anything into that in terms of geographicalness, because they can kind of place them where they want. I like this move. I think it's a good, young, youthful, vibrant city. We've seen it with the NHL where they've been quite successful there. The only concern I would have from Major League Soccer perspective is that there's already an NFL team in there and a successful hockey team that has found that kind of niche following, that kind of blue collar following that sometimes I think MLS relies on going into newer markets, and maybe there might be some risk there in finding your fan base. But I think this is a city that's ready to embrace a lot of things, and it's a fun party city, and MLS is kind of a fun party league at times. So I think this is going to be successful, and I like the move, and I like the move for the road trip potential too, because Nashville's a pretty fun city.
Let's go listen to some music while we're in Smashville. Now, the CONCACAF Champions League draw, that wasn't really easy to watch in Canada. People were complaining, we can't watch the feed. No, because the rights of the CCL in Canada are held by TSN. TSN was broadcasting the draw on their over-the-top application TSN Go. Same was done in Mexico with a Mexican outlet. So it was available on YouTube for American listeners.
People seriously wanted TSN to put the CONCACAF Champions League draw on live over the air TV. Come on. People.
Yes? Why? What's wrong with that? It's normal to me. Come on, it has to be on TV.
It's fine to be on the web.
But because they're
a business and they want more than 6 people to watch it.
Yeah, well, it's more because people was trying to watch it from Canada on the YouTube, which would be the same link as the United States listeners, but it wasn't working because of geo blocking. But that draw, first of all, it's a complicated setup. It's a complicated bracket. Duane, can you go through it with us for a second?
Sure. Just give me 2 seconds to get it in front of me. But we'll start with this.
I get it. I get like the first matchups, and I get the numbers. So what happens after? Couldn't they just draw a bracket? Like, can you just make it a little bit easier for me? Just make a normal bracket.
Yeah. Well, it is. CONCACAF doesn't like to do anything too easy. But the bottom line with TFC, and that's what most people are going to want to talk about here, is that their path to the final is going to go through Mexico. Now it starts in Colorado, and that's the unfortunate sort of thing here. That was like literally the one team that no one that supports Toronto FC basically wanted to draw, not because they are worried about the Rapids in any competitive way. In fact, it's probably a very easy touch. It wouldn't surprise me if the Rapids threw like Trellis out there or something, because I don't think they care about this competition, because I don't think they realize they're not deep enough to compete in it. So they're probably going to toss it easily. So it's probably a pretty easy competitive touch for TFC, but Colorado, like, they're playing the Rapids. My God, like, how boring is that? It's been like 4 years since TFC's played in the Champions League. You want at least like a Central American team that you've never heard of come up here, so you get a little spice to the competition. But you're gonna try and draw people to watch the friggin' Colorado Rapids in February. Oh, ugh!
I wanted TFC to draw Toro FC. So you have a TFC versus TFC. Who's going to win? TFC's going to win.
TFC's going to win. That one would work, yeah. And there's a lot of people, too. And I mean, I don't mean to make this all fan-centric, but again, from a competitive standpoint, again, to reiterate this, you look at TFC is obviously going to prioritize doing well in this competition. They're talking about it all the time now. The management it is a priority for them. There's no mystery to that. They've drawn a team in this that no one even thinks should be in it. They were one of the worst teams in Major League Soccer last year. They're in a rebuild mode, have dropped some of their best players, and have no appetite for it, and are going to play they're not going to care. The Colorado Rapids do not want to beat TFC in this. Although that said, let's be, ball is round and all that. And we do remember the LA Galaxy versus the worst team in the world, TFC, and TFC won that tie. So
can you imagine? Can you imagine if Colorado beats TFC in the quarterfinals, and how they can say, "Well, we beat the Troubles, we beat the team who make the trouble, and now I guess we're good." It would give a sour taste in TFC's fans' mouths to go for all those highs and be booted out by the Rapids in the CCL.
It would give a sour taste in 20% of TFC's fans' mouths. Yes. The CCL, for all, we all understand it being, the next thing MLS has to conquer, but part of what they have to conquer with this is educating and making people understand of its importance, and which in turn will then make it more important, because it is in fact not as important in terms of recognition in a market than MLS Cup is. So yes. But no, I'm not. I really would put TFC's chances at winning this tie at 90% or 95% even, because I don't think Colorado is going to put a lot of effort into it.
You're right. It's after Colorado that it gets complicated. It's after Colorado to kind of get maybe the best ever Mexican team, and then the biggest Mexican team ever, at least in history. So you get Tigres, and you maybe get Club America. Those, unless there's upsets, Toronto's on that side of the draw where they get some big clubs, unfortunately. And the way the seeding was made, it's kind of, I don't think it respects the type of season Toronto FC had, to have them not seeded as low or as high. You know what I mean? Having the other two best teams maybe in this competition on your side of the draw with Saprissa too. Yeah, it becomes like, the right side of the draw is getting really complicated, and the seeding aspect is, if if you win a domestic treble, maybe you should have a better seed than an A6.
Yeah, well, it's as you say, you're going to have to go through the Mexican team in the second round. You have to beat them anyway, I guess is the way to look at this. It's ideal. What I like about this from a Toronto perspective, we should talk about the other MLS teams too briefly before we say goodbye to this show. But what I like about this from a Toronto perspective is it does have, like I said, a touch in the first round that's going to be familiar for them. The travel is going to be easy. You're going into Colorado. The weather is going to be the same for both teams. In fact, there's a chance that it might be worse weather in Denver than it will be in Toronto at that point. So that's put any advantage disadvantage situation out the window here. Although who knows I don't even know what the Rapid situation is in terms of their ability to play at that time of year. I would think that they probably will be able to play outside, but who knows?
Yeah. I've seen games. I've seen do you remember the Snow Classico?
Well, they played
Costa
Rica.
Rica.
Snow Classico, yeah.
Costa Rica with the United States in literally a foot of snow.
You're correct. Yeah, that popped in my head exactly while I was saying that. So yes, both these games will be played. There's possibility for orange balls in both of these games. They took the two possible. It's almost like they fixed the draw and said, let's make sure that the two snow teams play each other. So
Okay,
there's no chance.
We have one orange ball. So how do we deal with this? We've got one. We need to make sure we only need to use one because we only have one.
Precisely. All right, let's go through the rest of the draw here. You got Chivas back in this. That was actually who I kind of hoped that they were going to draw up for a second round matchup because Chivas is such a historical team, and I've seen Club America in Montreal. I've never seen Chivas play live, so I was kind of hoping for that. But alas, that didn't happen. They are playing
Cibao FC.
There you go. Not much of the Mexican teams will win these first round matchups. You've got Seattle against Santa Tecla FC.
Santa Tecla FC.
Sorry, I'm reading a very small screen here, so forgive me. You've got the New York Red Bulls in Olympia. That's a Honduran team. There is I would say a potential for an upset there. Olympia is a pretty consistent team in this competition. They've won rounds in it before. You got Tijuana against Motega
FC Motega, which is close to Montaigu. I think it's Shakespeare's favorite team. FC Montega.
Yeah, that was. There you go. They've been in the competition many times before as well. Tigres against. I always say that team wrong, so you go ahead and say it.
Herediano, Club Esportivo Herediano from Honduras.
All right, we've talked about Toronto and Colorado and Dallas and Toro, the team that you wanted to play. So Dallas is going to have to play TFC again. They played TFC in this.
By the way, Toro FC has nothing to do with FC Toro. So this is not the USL team playing in Rio Grande Valley. This is the Toro FC, a totally different name.
And the marquee matchup of the first round will be America and Saprissa, which is Saprissa was the most difficult touch you could have gotten in this round. I think that would be the only draw that TFC would have made that I would have been leery of in terms of being able to beat them. That is going to be it's an unfortunate draw for both of those clubs because Saprissa probably would have felt confident against pretty much any other team other than Club America, but here we are.
What's fascinating to me, it's always the coach of Club America. You remember the former coach of the Mexican national team in the 2014 World Cup, Miguel Angel Herrera, the small, short, stocky coach who has an amazing facial expressions on the sideline. I can't wait to see that. Like Club America, Saprissa. Hopefully Saprissa gets the job done and boots out Club America and gives a chance for everyone. Still got 2015 on, still hurts. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I don't know about you, but I feel because there was no group stage for the best teams in this competition this year, kind of hard to get that excited about it. That draw feels like the beginning of the CONCACAF Champions League and not just the quarterfinals. And I waited until I experienced it to see how I feel about the new format. And I have to say, so far, not good. Not good at all.
It takes most of the momentum away from it. I mean, the format is completely designed around the desires of MLS and the Mexican teams to not play the group stage games. They didn't want to put their their teams in MLS didn't want their teams playing, in a playoff run, having to run down to Central America in the middle of that. And I guess I get that from a purely competitive standpoint. But if you want to grow this competition, this isn't ideal. If you want to go, this is what I said at the time when they announced this, is if you really don't care about it that much and you're really this concerned about it, then, just go back to the CCC format and have it as a straight shot tournament, because you might get at least a little more momentum if we were playing a 2-week tournament, in early March or something like that, where you're playing, you go 4 games on, you just bang, 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 bang. Or you go Wednesday, Saturday, and have that final on the Saturday, and the momentum builds on single knockouts if you want to go this simple. And I mean, it wouldn't shock me if this doesn't work out and this is too much, if they end up eventually going back to that. I'm not advocating for that. I like the group stage. I liked it emulating what the Champions League in Europe looks like. But there's just not an appetite for it until it gets more competitive, at least. And there is truth to that. The group stages weren't that competitive. You were seeing big blowouts, and the Mexican teams were automatically going through playing, players with 100 on their jersey, right? And that was really probably it was funny for those of us that are soccer geeks, but it wasn't very compelling.
Before I went to Mexico the first time to watch Club America, Duane, I did not even know that numbers could go over 99. I did not even know that you could have players wear like 135 coming into the pitch, because we're not used to this in our league, in our soccer culture, because we don't have that many players. We don't have 500 players under our umbrella of development, which is the case sometimes with some Mexican club. But no, but to wrap it up today, to wrap the show today, Duane, I want to just do a little of what we have learned today because of the breaking news. Nashville, big announcement tomorrow in Smashville. And if you can read between the lines, there's a big soccer future announcement in Nashville with the commissioner and the owner of the bidding group that bid for a team in January. So 1+1 equal, Nashville is getting a Major League Soccer club. So we learned that today. And we learned as well that Larin is probably moving to Turkey.
And those are both some pretty big news items. The show kind of sometimes fills itself in the off season, doesn't it? When we go, what are we going to talk about tomorrow? And then, Kyle Larin, something we've been talking about for months. That's going to happen. Yeah. And expansion, something we've been talking about for months. That's going to happen. No, I'm happy for Nashville.
Sometimes people ask us, why do we do live shows? Why do we record live? And then, because things like this happens. Sometimes in the middle of the show, during the break, we learned that new teams are joining our league.
Precisely. All right, Kevin. Just quickly, we'll set up the rest of the week. Regular Soccer Today tomorrow. Thursday will be a little bit later in the afternoon when we're coming out with Five Rings Live. We'll give you the update on that one soon. And then Friday, we will have our annual rewards show. We'll give you our schedule for the holidays. We're going to take, obviously, a few days off next week. We'll be back probably midweek for a couple shows and then take a few days off for New Year's as well. So it'll be a bit scattered through the season, but we'll certainly get shows out more than most podcasts. But until all that time and until tomorrow, I'll let Kevin, as always, say goodbye.
You can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. Nashville is getting a team. The press conference is tomorrow. Kyle Larin, apparently there's a agreement in principles for a move to Besiktas, a T-Buzz club. So that is the other big news of the day. You can follow me at Kev Laramee. And as always, until tomorrow, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.